Welcome back to Everything from Nothing, Ireland's most splendid scenario. If you like the podcast and would like to support us, the price of a loaf of milk and a carton of bread a month, you can do so at patreon.com/Ireland's podcast. We upload bonus content there, but I'm going to get into the show now. Our guest this week has spent years campaigning for access to medicinal cannabis in Ireland for her daughter Ava. How do you get a sleeping country's attention to such an issue? Well, of course, you walk from Cork to Dublin, which is over 250 kilometres, just to start a conversation. That's exactly what this week's guest did. From the most welcoming county in Ireland, Cork, it's the wonderful, lovely and unstoppable Irish Mammy, Vera Twomey. How are you, Vera?
Hi, Kieran. How are you? Nice to see you.
Yeah, it's good.
Hi, Vera. How are you?
Hi, Hayley. Hi, Hugh. How are you?
How are you doing? How's lockdown treating you?
Well, it's been scary.
Yeah.
It's been scary. You know, I suppose we're heading nearly towards 12 months of this this in and out of lockdown now.
Yeah.
It's been very frightening. Because I suppose Ava would be a person who would be categorized as one of the more vulnerable people to the COVID, and actually, what was such a tremendous blow was in April of last year, Charlotte Figgy actually passed away from COVID. Yeah. And she was another little girl over in Colorado in the United States who had the same condition as Ava, and her mum was really my inspiration and you know, original introduction to medical cannabis. And Charlotte was doing really, really well. She was 13, and unfortunately she contracted the COVID and she didn't survive. So that was really frightening. We have been, I suppose, just doing the essentials. We've not been out that much at all, other than, you know, the essentials, the shopping and so forth. Certainly not the hairdresser. So that's all pinned back.
Vera, what age is Ava now?
Ava's 11.
Okay, and how's she doing?
She's doing good. She's doing well. She's doing really good. I mean, I suppose the lockdown situation affected school and everything, so she does miss school. She really does. She misses school, misses the teachers, the interaction with the other students and everything. But what can you do? You know, it's very dangerous. It has to be taken seriously, and you know, we couldn't, you know, school wasn't a place she could be with the way things have been. But no, like, the seizures are under control. She's so happy, and she's just the boss of the house, really, to be honest with you.
And
you know,
Vera, is Ava in mainstream education?
She is. She wouldn't be able for mainstream.
Yeah.
But she is in a special unit attached to a mainstream school.
Oh, that's brilliant.
In Macroom, and that's amazing. Yeah. And I just think that it's really nice for a little girl like Ava to have the interaction with other children with difficulties, but also at playtime, they have interaction with the other children, or they used to before COVID. And you know, I think it's great for them to not be totally isolated within their group. That other people, that they're playing with the other children, and indeed that the other children are playing with them and are kind and considerate.
There's not many units like that in Ireland.
Yeah, I've never heard of school having that before.
Yeah, they're common in the UK, but here, my own daughter, I couldn't get access to one of those at all.
Yeah, well, the thing was that Ava's overriding condition is Dravet syndrome, but she has a diagnosis of autism as well.
Okay.
And she was in a different school previously when her seizure activity was more serious. But since her seizure control has become so, you know, the seizures are about 95% controlled. she was able to be admitted to that school within the autistic unit. So it's just a gift because it's local, it's country people, it's the right place for her to be, and we're so happy that she has access to it, because access is a big issue regarding any kind of special education in Ireland. It's quite difficult.
There's a good few autistic units attached to mainstream schools around Thurles, like you have,
that's the way it should go, like, I think, isn't it?
It's the way it is definitely. In the UK, definitely. Like, there's far more,
It's like that in the UK as well, is it?
Yeah, we've got SLD units, MLD units, so severe learning disability units, moderate learning disability units. But here it's very much divided.
It's inclusion, isn't it?
Yeah, of course.
People shouldn't be isolated from other people just because they've got a different set of abilities, or see the world a different way. I think we've all got something to give, Yeah.
Are you able to get any interaction online now with the other kids and stuff like that?
I would say that the teachers have been very supportive, but for Ava, she would really need the face-to-face. She would need to be right there with the teacher to kind of encourage her and to point her in the right direction. So like, I have 3 other children. So I have Ava's 11, my second daughter is 9, my son is 8, and my youngest daughter is 6. Cool. So like, it's different for them because they're doing FaceTimes with buddies and things like that. But every special needs child is different, so their level of ability is different. But for Ava, she would be a person that would kind of need that one-on-one. So we're doing what we can at home, but she's very happy. Sometimes she gets a little bit of cabin fever with this, but you can overcome that as well. It's the safest place to be is at home at the moment.
Can you get out into nature or anything? Does that help? Go for a big long walk?
Oh yes, of course. Yeah, I mean, we're so lucky here because, I mean, we are quite isolated where we are. We're very much in mid Cork, but we're surrounded by fields. We have a good sized garden. So the opportunity to get out and walk around without actually bumping into other people is there. Like on her good days, we walk out to the end of the lane and back in again, and it's a break. It's a break for her, and to be out in the fresh air is important as well.
And Vera,
you have to go on. You go.
Could you tell us a little bit more about Dravet syndrome?
Sorry, I didn't get any of that, Hayley.
Could you tell us a little bit more about Dravet syndrome?
Of Dravet syndrome, sure.
So just to tell the audience, that's the diagnosis your daughter has, correct?
That's right. She's got a diagnosis of Dravet syndrome. I suppose it's a severe form of myoclonic epilepsy. It used to be called intractable drug resistant epilepsy. And unfortunately, it really does what it says on the tin. Ava's seizures began at 4 months old. Her diagnosis with Dravet came at around the age of 6 months. And my goodness, what we went through with pharmaceutical medications, it was just it was a long and arduous journey. With kids like Ava, probably about 1 in every 45 to 60,000 children will be born with Dravet syndrome. So it is very rare. But the prognosis for it is difficult. I remember when we were given the prognosis from the consultant when she was 6 months. It was very, very difficult to hear. They said she wouldn't walk, she wouldn't speak. I would have outlined that in the book, that she was going to be in a wheelchair, that the mortality of children with Dravet syndrome was around 3 years. But the thing is, getting back to the point about each person being an individual, my daughter is now 11, and she's very happy. She is walking, she is running. she is speaking, she is, you know, even when she isn't speaking, you do know who the boss is, and she has preferences. She knows what she wants. So the difficult years would have been, you know, from sort of 2010 when the seizures would have started to, you know, around 2016 before we saw the introduction of initially the CBD. She would have gone through maybe up to 10 different types of epileptic medication with the Draves. Then with the Draves, then some pharmaceutical medications are contraindicated, so you wouldn't be able to try them at all. But each one of the medications, some did have an effect in controlling the seizures for a period of time. I will say that. But consistently, each one of the medications had severe side effects. Drooling, just comatose on the sofa, the inability to balance, sometimes nausea, certainly insomnia. You know, even one of the most disturbing things when I looked back on it was the initial medication, phenobarbital, that she was on. One of the side effects of phenobarbital is suicidal ideations.
Wow.
And you know, I have always found that very, very difficult to deal with, because at the time that we were prescribed that medication, I wouldn't have been, you know, I was consistently taking advice from the consultants. You know, that's what you do. That's you go to the consultants for advice. And it frightens me to think that my baby was on a medication that could have resulted in frightening thoughts for her, you know, within her own head when she was small. It's many of the medications have severe side effects. And then we pushed on to accessing the cannabis. And look, I mean, like there are plenty of side effects from medicinal cannabis, but they include better sleep, they include better appetite, they include engagement, they include bright eyes and happiness. And you know, I've genuinely yet to come across a negative side effect with either CBD and THC, and I do not imagine, after using medical cannabis with Ava under prescription since 2017, that, you know, 4 years later, that we're going to find significant side effects now.
I think that the negative side effect there comes socially. The negative side effect of using medical cannabis is social. I'm just finding
it so hard to hear you, Hayley, sorry.
So the negative side effect from using medical cannabis is social. There's a social side effect of using it, that there's still some kind of stigma around using cannabis as a helpful medical treatment.
Yes, I would probably suggest that there might be social stigma surrounding the use of recreational cannabis. And that the stigma surrounding the use of recreational cannabis infiltrates into anybody who is seeking access to medical cannabis. Because people's perception of cannabis is based, you know, or has been based for many years on the recreational use of cannabis. And being that the medicinal side of the plant has only come to the fore in, you know, relatively recent times, I think that people are learning about it, but there is certainly a significant stigma for doctors and for people in general, surrounding even discussing the possibility of prescribing medical cannabis for patients.
Did you experiment to see whether it was the CBD or the THC was giving you more benefit, you know?
That's an interesting question, Hugh. For us, I think that I had done a tremendous amount of research from about 2015 regarding medical cannabis. And the thing was with me that my baseline of knowledge regarding cannabis was really zero. I really started from nothing. I was not a recreational user of cannabis. I really didn't didn't know anything about it other than its perception in the media. And I at the beginning found it difficult to believe, in fact, that what I was seeing about cannabis was real until I did the research and contacted parents in America and spoke to people and realized that, this is a legitimate alternative and
Yeah.
that this is Ava's chance
I
for survival.
I think
Um,
I think that's
but
important. Sorry, go on.
yeah, and sorry, your question. Sorry, I've lost my.
Yeah, no,
Your
I was just wondering about, did you get, like, I've experimented myself between CBD and THC to see which would
yeah.
be more beneficial, and
Mm-hmm.
I was getting more benefit out of CBD. Like I tried it on my dad, and then I tried it on my dog as well, which is sounds a
Yeah,
bit funny, but it actually worked.
it helps. Yeah,
Yeah, it
yeah.
did. Yeah,
Actually, yeah. Sorry, I lost my train of
yeah.
thought there. Initially, after doing the research, we started the Charlotte's Web oil
Oh yeah, yeah,
in 2016, and it's so familiar to people now, but at
yeah.
the time it was it was quite a thing. Um, and the thing about it was, right, that we had spent, this was 16, so Ava was born in November of 09, and the seizure started in 10. So we had 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. We nearly had 7 years of daily seizures at this stage. And I had I had the privilege, I think, really, of meeting Joel Stanley above in Dublin, who is one of the producers of the Charlotte's Web oil. And he's a very genuine, family orientated, decent person. And I was so delighted to make his acquaintance. And then what I was lacking was support or, kind of reassurance from any consultant. However, I did manage to have a conversation with a consultant in Dublin who said to me, Vera, if Ava was my child, I would have her on the CBD oil for sure. And
Mm.
so I kind of thought, well, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And he had said that to me. I had met Joel Stanley. We had researched the product. We started the product, and the seizures stopped. They
Yeah.
stopped. And this had never happened with anything. We had 13 consecutive days of seizure freedom with just the CBD alone. And for me, after seeing the improvement in Ava on the CBD, the following kind of February or March, the seizures started to break through again. So I think at that stage, I understood that, okay, the CBD has caused nothing but benefit for this child.
Yeah.
So therefore, other parents' next step was the introduction of THC to complement the CBD oil. And I actually wasn't I was less afraid of introducing THC because of the experience that we had with the CBD. But the seizures came under control again and have stayed really under control since. But I know what you mean about people are different.
Yeah.
Each person, we all have an endocannabinoid system,
Yeah.
which unfortunately doctors are not. I think is it 6 or 7 years that doctors are trained in university. Professor Mike Barnes told me, I think they get 45 minutes in those years of introduction to the endocannabinoid system,
Wow.
which is which is a
Silly.
deeply unfortunate.
Yeah.
Um, so cannabis will affect the oils will benefit in different ways for each person. Dosage is different. It's based on weight and so on. So I think, it's not a one size fits all. So I'm not surprised
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
CBD would work well for one person or a lower percentage is more effective for somebody, a higher percentage for somebody else. It's very individual.
And different
Yeah.
brands as well are, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? I got some brands worked and some didn't. That was the
There's-
other thing I found.
I think there's
Yeah, the thing is that unfortunately there are marvelous CBD oils available over the counter. Like we had the Charlotte's Web for Ava, but then subsequently other CBD products became available, and unfortunately there was notices made that some of these over the counter CBD products actually didn't have any CBD in them at all,
Just
which
all
is,
oil, yeah.
it's terrible,
Yeah.
because I feel like that shouldn't be allowed. That's why regulation is necessary, so that if a CBD product is being sold, that it is what it says on the bottle.
yeah.
Because somebody could have tried CBD, but tried one that was
And then-
misrepresenting what it was,
and says it
and
doesn't
therefore
work.
thought, well, that doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
That's a pity, but it works for everybody else, but not for me.
Yeah, the
But-
Charlotte's Web is a good
When-
brand, all right. Yeah.
When you
Very
s-
good. Yeah.
When you said when you said you lost your train of thought there a few minutes ago, I think it was still really important though, like to point out to the people watching, like that, like as you said, you had no like sort of personal or any sort of connection with cannabis itself before this. Like it was just a case of like a very worried and tired mother, tired from the uphill battle of like dealing with her like daughter's seizures every day, that led to you doing all this research. And I think it's really important to point out that you were like sort of a bit iffy about it yourself, to show that you're not just a mother who's just like trying to get cannabis legal for the sake of cannabis. It's like you had your own sort of, it's not a bias, you're not coming from a biased place is what I'm saying. I think that's very important for people to know. Like you did your research from the ground up, and it wasn't a case of, oh yeah, that will work. It was like you had resistance towards it at first. I think that's a very important thing to sort of point out to people.
That was just kind of break you up a small bit, but I think what you're saying, like I would have researched very carefully.
Yeah.
I think in fact probably initially the thing that I would have researched least were the pharmaceutical medications, because we just assumed that they were going to do good for Ava.
Yeah.
The negative side effects of them for in her particular case, and I'm not anti-pharmaceutical medication whatsoever, but
for her individual,
they don't suit everybody. They don't suit everybody. But no, I would have been coming from a place of care for my child.
yeah.
That the best option for my child and the safest way of accessing that medication. Some people have said to me many times, why didn't you just grow it yourself, and extract the oil and this and that? But I just want to be able to go and
Yeah.
get the bottle of oil and have consistency and know that it's been made in a clean environment and or processed in a clean environment, and that's what we were aiming for.
Yeah.
I think as well, when you talk about the side effects of medications, like the pharmaceutical medications, they're actually not side effects, they're effects.
Yes.
They're genuine
Yes.
effects. They are part of the pharmaceutical effect of that medication, and we try and maybe minimize them by calling them side effects, but they are what they
I'm
are.
so sorry, guys. The volume, I can't really hear.
I'll try and turn it up there. Sorry there now. For a brief commercial break. Right. Is this... Whoa. Is that any better?
Is that better?
Yes, it is. It is.
Okay.
Indeed, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, just, the side effects, they are genuine effects of pharmaceutical medications. We try and minimize
right.
them, and say
Yep,
they're side effects,
right.
but they're not. They're experienced effects.
But you know something, you're absolutely right, because the whole time through this, I have been calling them side effects. It's just I suppose it's just the term that
It
you
is,
use,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
you're dead right. They're effects.
Yeah.
That's the, I mean, the thing was that, at one stage, Ava was on 15 tablets a day, and
That's
she was
insane.
having seizures between doses of her medication. It wasn't working. It wasn't for her. And it's not like I'm saying whatsoever that, there are other people out there. A person could be diagnosed with epilepsy at the age of 8 years or 10 years, they might be on Epilum for the next 50 years, you know, and they could lead a productive life. They could be, you know, they could be working happy and everything, but that's not the way it is for everybody. And
and you have to look
you
at
know,
what's sustainable, because it's not just the patient or the person who's got the diagnosis. It has an enormous ripple effect to everybody else around. And if you are a parent, not to mention a child taking 15 tablets 15 times a day, whatever it is, you know, but if you're a parent having to live by that, to remember to do that and to structure your life around it, it's almost impossible.
Well, the thing about it is that your life is stalled.
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah.
your life is paused.
Yeah.
Because you don't have the ability to, you know, go for a drink with somebody, go to the movies, go and go for dinner, you know, any of the things that you know, kind of can be arranged with the assistance of a babysitter. You know,
it's like your own life, it's no longer an enjoyable, pleasurable activity. Your own life is just doing things for the sake of keeping your child alive. And of course every parent's going to do that without even questioning it, but the quality of the relationship and the interaction that you have is minimized.
It's a duty. I mean, you have a duty of care, you know, to the child. And of course, I mean, I'd go through a brick wall for any of them, to be honest with you. Like, but sort of, it's funny, like, I remember, like, in the earlier years, you know, we'd be invited to weddings, or, you know, like, you know, people were getting married, or there'd be parties, or there'd be this and that. And we were never able to go because Ava would have a seizure, or we'd be in hospital, or there was something else. And then gradually people stopped inviting us because they knew that we weren't going to be able to go. And then, you know, a little bit further down the line, you kind of realize, God, you know, I haven't seen this person or that person in nearly 12 months. You know, I haven't been for a drink somewhere in 2 years. Like, your whole focus is gone away from those, you know, enjoyable activities that, you know, you would have taken for granted previously. But, like, when it comes down to it, I don't miss going for a pint, or I don't drink pints, but, you know, like, I don't miss going for drinks that much, because she's more important than any social activity. But you do miss it, like, you do.
Yeah, it's normal to want, you know, other kind of human contact and different social engagements and that kind of thing. That's perfectly normal. There's, you know, there's no parent that would say, oh, I'd rather go out for a pint than that.
And even like, the thing is, we'll say when Ava would be at school, or, you know, kind of when like when she's at home, you're minding all the time, you're watching the whole time anyway, you know, because her balance is good, but, you know, like, it could go a bit, or, you know, you need to be there. But even when she's at school, good God, you're catching up on everything, or there's some other thing that you're trying to do, and, you know, there's no time for social life, really. Like, it's just, it is what it is.
Like, obviously you're saying, like, like, the most important thing is, you know, your daughter's health and stuff, so you don't miss pints because of that. But what's not normal about it is, like, in a weird way, that's sort of a very, like, what's the word, like, it's a very, like, ancient sort of way of living, in a weird way. I'm trying to explain this properly. Like, not ancient, there's a better word for it. Like, it's very much, it doesn't match up with where we are as humans are at in 2021. As in, you shouldn't be waking up like the way we used to. Oh, wake up and now we have to go hunt for food and all that. Completely different.
Yeah, I was hunting for cannabis. Yeah,
you're hunting for, like, the nutrients your daughter needs, like, and that's not like
the hunter gatherer kind of thing. I get you. Yeah.
But it's like, whatever the specifications of it are for every individual, but no human should be in 2021 full of, like, the intelligence we do now have, should be in that sort of, in that constant survival mindset. It doesn't make any sense in 2021.
But you know, Kieran, that's not just me. Like, that's any parent that has a special needs child and has somebody that's caring for somebody that, you know, let's just even say basically needs speech and language therapy, needs occupational therapy, needs physiotherapy, needs all these things. Like there are women out there, and they mightn't be on the paper or the news, but like they're on the phone and they're fighting tooth and nail to try and get these services and get, like we mentioned earlier, to get into a suitable school, to be able to access transport to that school, to be able to, you know, do all these things. It is very difficult.
It is,
you know.
I'm smiling a little bit about it because I've been through it all too with my own daughter, trying to access what should be very basic things. And you know, I like to be able to see it from both sides of the fence, you know, to experience the frustration as the parent of a child in a hospital when you're faced with those arguments and that kind of outlook and that perspective. You know, it's not user friendly, it's not patient friendly, it's not person friendly. You know, the system is so much the system in Ireland, and a system isn't human. It doesn't seem to relate to humans in the way that it could.
Yeah, I don't mean to be reverting back to it again, but like the brutality of the delivery of Ava's diagnosis is an example of that. I mean, it was awful. It was, I really don't, I can't, I feel it here still. I feel it here when I think about it. Like, there should be more humanity. There should be more humanity when dealing with parents of people that are unwell, or even patients that are unwell in their families. And like, regarding the services, you can be in a situation like where you will have fought tooth and nail to get a child into a suitable school, and then you may achieve that goal, but then you've got to start all over again, because you've got to find transport for that child to the school. And it's like one thing should go hand in hand with the other. You know what I mean?
I actually had my mechanic pick up my daughter from school several times before I could secure transport. Well, not several times, for several weeks before I could secure transport. He happens to be a friend of mine. He's not just random mechanic man. But that was how desperate I got, because I still needed to go to work.
Of course.
You know, and like you said, there was no communication, no correlation between the two.
There's no logical thought or connection to that. No. And I don't know why. Like, I think it's, you know, one department is dealing with one thing and another department is dealing with another thing, and there's a hierarchical situation going on in each department. So there should be a link between, you know, certain types of services, but it's everybody goes through it. I think everybody, because I had a nice bit of a struggle to get the transport for Ava into school, and it's tough going. Like,
the system seems to survive to protect itself rather than serve the people, you know, and it's pity.
And like if the system was working effectively and was fighting to survive for itself, that'd be grand.
Yeah,
but the system kind of isn't working properly in so many ways.
It seems to serve the employees of that system rather than the people.
You're right. Yeah.
Not all of the employees.
We need someone like yourself for Minister for Health or something to try and reform the whole thing. But I don't see anything changing while it's the way it is, you know?
You need people passionate about the topic or like the thing at hand, like are passionate and educated and stuff, because there's so many politicians and we're not the only country that sort of fall into that job and stuff. I think the thing about Ireland is well, like, it's not corrupt in the way America is corrupt and stuff like that, but it's like, there's more of a personal thing. There's less of a sort of systematic corruption and more of an individual gain for each one or whatever, which is okay, but it's kind of funny. But there's like sort of, because that, like, long term, the good thing about that is it makes it easier for the right people to take their place when that happens and stuff. You know, with people like yourself, calling for that change and specific things and stuff.
I think it's amazing what you did, you know, walking to Dublin and all that. But I often wondered, what were you like as a kid? Would you be like that as a kid, just try and change things, you know?
Oh, that's a good question.
I don't know. I mean, Well, I'm an only child
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
So I suppose that's one thing. And I maintain a lot of time the only children get a bad all rap, you know, we're kind of supposed to be introverted, kind of loners, kind of, you know, that kind of crack. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And well, I don't know, maybe I'm just anti everything, but like I'm anti that anyway. I'm the opposite. I never stop talking, and like in fact, you know, if I'm going on too much, do shut me down and we move on to the next thing.
No, yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, I was pretty tough on the camogie pitch, all right, I'd say, yeah.
That's class.
So you know, and the thing with me was, I there's even girls today just saying, "Oh Jesus, Vera, you hit me a puck that day," you know. Oh my God. And I never meant to hurt anybody, but I was very passionate about winning, you know. So
I'm picturing like your classmates from school saying, "Oh, the minister's in trouble. It's Vera coming now. He's gonna get it," you know.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I don't know whether like I'm not a public person at all. Like I would be kind of in that sense kind of a bit kind of shy until you get me going. But like yeah, maybe they were saying that. I must ask some of them actually. I'm not sure. I never really asked anybody, but yeah, I wouldn't be. I think my father and my mother were hard-working people. I was always trained to work hard and be honest, and that if you worked hard and if you were honest, then put out good, and good will come back.
Yeah.
And therefore, like, that's kind of what I believed in. And then.
Your mother and father then must have had a good sense of social justice and, you know, looking after people and stuff like that.
Well, they wouldn't have been, you know, they wouldn't have been kind of left people. I mean, we were hardcore Fine Gael, like, you know. My dad and my mum and my grandparents and my great grandparents, and just back as far as you can go. So like the ironic thing about that was like that you know, when Simon Harris became the Minister for Health, I thought, oh geez, I was so naive by like, I mean, I thought this is great. Fine Gael are in power. Like Fine Gael are the good lads. They're the good fellas. You know, we're in that crowd. And I was a member of the local, you know, the local sort of branch of Fine Gael. I said, this is great. Sure, how wrong I was. You know what I mean?
That was
kind of what I learned over the course of the time. I mean, the Fine Gael people wouldn't even talk to me. Never mind respect us. You know, it was devastating. If my father had been alive, he would have been absolutely incandescent with temper. He would have been so upset. You know, he really would. Yeah.
I think that's what I was saying as well. Like in Ireland, it's like in America, it's like there is like nearly two sides. You're on one or the other or whatever. In Ireland, it doesn't matter even if you're part of the party or whatever. Like people sort of have their own individual things. So like I don't know, a lot of time parties do go out the window, and it's got to do it, and like you know, like an individual basis. Can I just like though if we can like get into like you know where we're at now, because you did sort of start to get success and stuff. Could you touch and explain to like people watching like about the Compassionate Acts program, how that, what you were told about and where it's at now? And
I just don't know. I mean, the one thing that happened after the walk was they started about setting up the Compassionate Access program, and it was June of 17 we left Ireland for Holland. We had to go to Holland to access the medication over there. And just to briefly say about Holland, the difference between, like, I think Haley said that we're like about 10 years behind. You know, I don't know whether you said that there now or whether when we were chatting earlier, but like that Ireland is about 10 years behind. To be actually honest with you, I'd say Ireland is probably more like 25 years behind.
Yeah.
You know, in comparison to when we went to Holland, the attitude of the consultants over in Holland to Ava and to us was just kind, considerate, empathetic, and reasonable.
Yeah,
And
that's good.
aside from their approach to us and their attitude to medical cannabis, the equipment that they had over there was state of the art. Like even, the equipment for taking an EEG for an epilepsy patient, it showed me that the equipment that was being used inside the CUH was archaic in comparison to what was over there.
Yeah.
But in any case, the compassionate access program was brought out, and we hoped that, obviously we hoped that the compassionate access program was going to benefit Ava, but it was announced, and I think many people thought, that everybody's situation was resolved because of it. But Simon Harris omitted to mention, when he announced the compassionate access program, that it wasn't going to be funded. So the thing was, he announced the program and said, this medication, that medication is going to be on it, and patients will be, they're prescribed their medication, but nobody got prescribed anything. And it's only in the recent weeks that Stephen Donnelly has announced that the compassionate access program is going to be funded, which, don't get me wrong now, is excellent news for people moving forward. But like, there are 50 people in Ireland. It could actually be maybe up to 54 people in Ireland granted individual licenses for medical cannabis. About 65 to 70% of the people on the individual licensing system are using the Bedrocan products. And they're not included in the compassionate access program.
So do you just want to say a little bit more about the Bedrocan products?
Yeah, like the Bedrocan products are made in the Netherlands. They are dispensed by the Bedrocan company provides the raw material, or the bud, to produce the oil, and the oil is produced in a facility in Den Haag at the Transvaal pharmacy and dispensed from the pharmacy. And that's the product that all of these, about 65 to 70% of the people are on. Now, we're being funded our medication, or sorry, I beg your pardon, we're being refunded our medication.
Okay.
So Ava's medication costs €9,500 every 3 months. So we must pay that and then wait another month for it to be refunded. But there are many other patients on individual licenses whose medication isn't being refunded at all. And
this
now
is
you've got a situation. Yeah.
Sorry, the Bedrocan is a combined THC and CBD product.
No, it's not. It's individual. It's
okay.
The CBD is it's Bedica and Bedrolite. One is CBD and one is THC.
Right.
And personally, I believe that it's better to have CBD and THC separate and administer them separately. I suppose it's what I've become accustomed to and what works for Ava. Some of the oils are mixed. You're correct about that. Yeah. This one isn't, but I would be nervous about having them mixed together. Just that just to have them separate, I'm more confident with what I'm dealing with that way.
You feel it's more reliable and more predictable in the way that you
I do. Well,
give it.
I suppose I'm not suggesting by any means that the mixture of the two would be unreliable.
Yeah.
But
for you
it's
giving
certainly
it
what I'm used to.
Yeah.
But like getting back to the compassionate access program, you have a situation now where patients going forward are to be funded the medication at source, but our family is still going to have to pay €9,500, wait for it to be refunded, and have that money set in stone again once it's refunded for the next prescription.
And that's every 3 months. Is that what you said?
Yeah. and like it's an
not very
awful lot of
feasible,
money,
like,
and
yeah.
you'd worry so much, like, that if your circumstances changed, like there could be a crisis, or and something could
Yeah.
happen. I cannot afford for Ava to miss a dose of her medication. If she
Yeah.
missed a dose of her medication, it is critical. It is absolutely imperative that there is a consistent supply, like, for her well-being and for our sanity as well.
Yeah.
Like, in March, when they said, March of last year, when they said that, when the COVID came, they said we would have to continue to travel for the medication. I was not going to accept that whatsoever. It was
Yeah.
absolutely too dangerous.
To travel to Holland, right? Is that,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. The danger of picking up the COVID, but now the delivery has been secured, thankfully.
Okay.
But yeah.
Why did they want you to travel for the medication? Could they not just post it?
Oh, sure, Hugh. I'd say that, like, I mean, there's an element of punishment in that, to be honest with you.
That's bizarre.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
just completely bizarre.
Yeah, like to be honest with you, Hugh, when we finally got back from Holland at the end of 2017, I was bait. I was just bait. I I was. It had been just. It was such a struggle to have juggled everything for those 6 months, and to have to have to have stayed with it. And I was tired, and they told us by no means the medication couldn't be delivered. There was obstacles, there was legal obstacles, there was problems on the Dutch side, and we were genuinely so grateful to have the medication that we said, look, do you know what? We'll go and get it, and the child is the most important thing. So
Yeah.
anyway, but in the back of your mind, you'd be saying, like, you know, if a one had diabetes, for example, and would a diabetic patient be told to fly to Helsinki to collect their insulin?
That's fucking
And that,
crazy.
that wouldn't happen. So we felt that we were being punished because of being so vocal. But
That's crazy.
I tried privately last March time to, get somebody to help us and to point out that we could not be at Cork Airport on a plane in Schiphol at an international hub going on trains. We couldn't be. The
Crazy.
cases of COVID over in the Netherlands were thousands every day. Like, it was so dangerous. And I'm
Yeah.
telling you, lads, like, within a week, it was sorted.
Wow.
Shorter even. It was sorted. They made arrangements, and then they told us that the delivery was only going to be maintained while the COVID restrictions were in place.
What?
But like last June and July, the figures had gone way down, hadn't they, that time?
Yeah.
And like, we were thinking, oh Jesus, we're going to be, sorry for swearing now, but we're going to be kind of coming up to this time now. We're going to be flying back again, and maybe COVID will rear its head again or whatever. So I was fighting to get them to agree to do the delivery permanently.
Yeah.
And at a meeting with Stephen Donnelly in December, he indicated that is permanent now.
Okay.
But you kind of wonder who's the vindictive one inside in some department that's causing all this trouble for
there's
no
plenty
reason.
of them.
But they seem like completely bad bastards inside in it that are just trying to wreck your buzz for the sake of it. Like, what is that about?
Just.
I won't mention names, but I know that there are.
Yeah.
I've met them.
Yeah.
And there is a bouncing ball above in that doll that is only bouncing with the power inside in it. And they want the power, they want the authority, they want subservience from the likes of me.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but like, if somebody, I was just always taught like that. If somebody hits you, hit him back harder. You know.
So I think that's
Yeah.
that's fair. Like,
Yeah,
It is fair.
I
If
agree.
some like that there are people up there that lack humanity and compassion, and their objective is the next level on the pay grade, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah,
Yeah.
which is very unfortunate.
Yeah, I think as well, like just they're taking out their own. It's their chance. They have the power now to sort of get back at the world for whatever happened to them. You see it in politicians and authoritative figures the world all over. Can you mention something? And I thought this was a really interesting point. Was sort of um, the just for the sake of like taxpayer and like what you pointed out could save like loads of people money, our whole country money, everyone, for the politicians, everyone. It's a really obvious thing that you seem to know about that the people in charge don't seem to, which is like the amount of money saved for the state, for everyone, for the state, compared to like the price of Ava being consistently in hospital compared to the price of the medication you're currently getting.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Hugh, we were Haley and Kieran and I just we were talking earlier. They probably said it to you like that. I mean, Ava would have spent 4 to 5 months of every year in hospital. So that was, the seizure started in 10, so it was 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. So that's 7 calendar years. And like I said to you, the introduction of initially the CBD and the seizure freedom was in October of 16. But that 4 to 5 month stay every year in the hospital over the course of the years was, with figures that I did,
So this is like,
excuse me, I beg your pardon.
okay.
The figures were up over 2 million euros.
Yeah, because you listed out like all the costs, which was like, I thought it was interesting, which you have everything.
Yeah, of course. Like, I mean, you're talking about a bed in CUH, about 900 euros a night. Okay, so immediately you're like, am I right? Am I right? Both right on that, Haley?
About that, yeah.
Yeah. So let's just say in and around, because it's give or take a couple of hundred grand anyway by the time you're finished. So 900 euros by 30, 60, 90, 120. What is it? Five, I don't know.
Not even the numbers though. More like just the list of like, because when you said it to us, like I don't even think people need to know the numbers to be like, whoa, that really does add up to that. Like in terms of all the staff, that's like it's mad.
It's the bed. Sorry, I'm getting too much into the 900 euros.
You're okay.
The bed, the nursing staff, the intensive care, the resuscitation units, the A&E admissions, the ambulances coming to the house every week, the advanced paramedics coming with the ambulances at times when things were extremely serious, the consultants' fees, the junior doctors who were involved, and the team that were involved in Ava's care. I mean, it just goes on and on.
It does. It goes on forever, because you're talking about.
It goes on and on. And I believe that there's also then there's secretaries, there's epilepsy nurses, there's all of this. All of this comes at a cost.
Yeah.
And if you call it, say, a cool 2 million for one girl over those 7 calendar years, you multiply that by there's a large percentage, that there's a reasonably high percentage of epilepsy in Ireland. That's just one condition though.
Yep. And if you take that for years to come as well, the potential cost to the state over a decade or two, minus if you think about something like epilepsy, the level of disability that can be caused, with any seizure, let alone a whole lifetime of seizures.
Yeah.
That limits that person's contribution to live independently, that person's contribution to contribute to society. The cost to the state is phenomenal.
Absolutely. You have, with its introduction, you have the ability for people to not be admitted to hospital.
Yeah.
To have enough control over their condition, whether it's epilepsy, chronic pain, endometriosis. whether it's Parkinson's, whether it's multiple sclerosis, any number of conditions. You multiply the benefit of the cannabis, you remove any waiting time or trolleys. Not waiting time, but there'll be no trolley crisis.
Yeah.
Because there'll be so many more people that are not being admitted to hospital because their situation is in control at home.
Yep, and the reduction in the burden to people who work in healthcare, you know, the strain that doctors and nurses are under at the moment because of sheer volume of numbers, that, you know, if we treat from a preventative perspective instead, you know, we're reducing numbers, we're reducing burdens, we're improving quality of life, not just for patients, but for workers, but for families. I mean, it just goes on and on.
It's the whole, the whole
like,
country.
It's true for you, like, that the cannabis would allow, the cannabis is allowing, like, Ava will always have Dravet syndrome, right? She'll always have Dravet syndrome, but she's got Dravet syndrome and a quality of life.
Yeah.
And a happy life. And
How much have you noticed her improvement in her quality of life, of Ava's quality in life, since she started the cannabis treatments?
I mean, like, with Ava, before the cannabis, school would kind of be a dream, you know. It would be, it was like she made it to school sometimes, but there was so many hospital admissions, and you know, there would be seizure activity at home that, you know, she wouldn't have been admitted to hospital in some situations until, you know, the way it would go, like, you'd have a seizure, you'd administer buccal midazolam to stop the seizure. Then if she had another seizure, I think you could have had a second dose of the buccal midazolam, but after that you couldn't give a third dose because the buccal midazolam inhibited the breathing. So if you gave a third dose, you know, it could be dangerous for Ava because she would need assistance breathing. Like, so, like, the buccal midazolam is gone, but it's replaced by attending school.
Wow.
Playing, like just ordinary stuff, you know, like being able to know what was going on around her. She's able to, you know, she mightn't be able now to go out and pick up the command, like, but, you know, she knows that it's fun, and she knows that, you know, we're kicking the ball around the garden, or you know, that kind of thing. Going for walks, like, it would be, you know, we would have taken Ava for walks and done things with her, but you'd probably have a seizure because something would startle her or something would catch her eye, and, you know, she'd go into something. But now you have the comfort of being able to enjoy her company without such an imminent threat of seizure activity, and that's down to the cannabis.
Wow.
Yeah, that's mad.
So it's way,
I can't kind of think, like feeding yourself, feeding yourself, drinking from the cup yourself. You know, just kind of sometimes, like, things that you totally take for granted, you know, that she wouldn't have to be fed, that she could feed herself. You know, like, she began to achieve that in Holland. Yeah.
Have the seizures kind of decreased, like, by much, like by 90% or 50% or what? Like,
oh, I'd say over 90. I'd be up and around 95%.
Wow.
Yeah.
My God, that's amazing.
Like, I mean, the thing is, you see, Hugh, it's kind of hard if you haven't seen them, but you know, when you see a tonic-clonic seizure, it's like the seizure that you see on the telly when somebody falls down. Well, Ava could have 10 of them. Well, like, Ava could have 8 or 10 of them in a day sometimes, but she could have had 400 or 500 other seizures, like absences, like different kinds of seizures while she was on the pharmaceutical medication. And so there really was hardly time for any life with the seizure activity, because there'd be a seizure, then there's a recovery period, then she's tired after the seizure, then she has another seizure, then she, you know, so it was a vicious train we were on.
And have the severity of the seizures as well as the frequency of the seizures, have they improved? Like,
like, what's kind of happened with Ava is that, you know, instead of having, like, it's hard to explain, instead of having a full tonic-clonic seizure, Ava has these kind of shouts, and she'll go, ah, like this.
Okay.
But it's like she has, it's like her brain is taking her there, but it's not taking her into it.
Wow.
It's so
Yeah.
you kind of feel that the cannabis has healed her brain enough to help her to stop it, and that the cannabis is putting up a wall to try and block this from happening to her. And so like you'll have these kind of shouts sometimes, but they are nothing, and they're nothing in comparison to what we were dealing with, and they are not, something whereby I would be looking at that as this is a dangerous situation that I need to call an ambulance.
Yeah, because it
like
doesn't even sound like a
before.
partial seizure.
Mm.
It just sounds as though it's the build up to a seizure that isn't actually quite happening.
That's what I think as well. I think it's like the seizures at the starting blocks, and it's not being left run.
Funny enough, I used to have seizures myself. Petit mal,
right?
epilepsy. Yeah. So anyway, went to see a specialist and all that, and I was put on Tegradol. And it was you're going to have to take this for the rest of your life or whatever. And after a couple of years, I knew a pharmaceutical rep, and she told me not to, like it would ruin your liver or something, to try not taking it. So I did. I haven't taken it. Yeah, I haven't taken it in about 10 years or whatever. It just disappeared, the whole thing. I don't know. I don't know what was going on really.
Yeah. I mean, that's wonderful that that's happened to you. I mean, but I suppose, like it's hard for consultants though too, isn't it?
Yeah,
because
it is. Yeah.
If you've got we've got a great consultant now at the moment, such a supportive, wonderful consultant, and we're so happy with them. Yeah. But that's cool. Like if you've got a consultant and they want to look after you, and their advice is to stay on the medication. I suppose from their perspective, they're trying to do right by you.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's.
I think
like.
I think what I look back on more was I was leading a very unhealthy life at that period of my time, in my 20s, and like I could go 3 days without sleep in college, this kind of thing. So it was all self-inflicted, So just kind of now have a night's sleep, eat healthier, all that kind of stuff, exercise. So
you were probably sensitive to sleep deprivation or something like that,
Probably, yeah.
It probably was a wonderful thing to be to feel confident enough to come off the medication and to not experience further seizure activity. I mean, another person could still be on it permanently.
Well, it was just an experiment, like, so if you try it for a year or whatever, if you have a seizure, take it again,
Yeah.
I think what's missing.
I've heard that Tegretol is a tough one, all right, though. Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah. Sorry, Hayley.
So I think that what's missing in healthcare in Ireland is kind of a dialogue between patients and families and doctors.
Yeah.
That it's still quite patriarchal here compared to when I trained in the UK. It's a very top-down approach that the consultant says, and everybody beneath them, including the registrars and the SHOs and
it's a what kind of an approach, Hayley? Sorry,
it's a very patriarchal or a top-down approach. That the consultant says what goes, and there's no real dialogue. There isn't particularly a conversation between any of the more junior levels of doctors and families and patients, and it's just an I say you do type of medical culture. It's not very helpful when you're trying to get more information as a patient or a family member. It doesn't allow all sides to be brought into the equation and for the difficulty to be managed in the most effective way.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we would have gone to Great Ormond Street Hospital as well. We took Ava over to see another specialist in London, and the kind of attitude over there was very, very similar to the attitude here. You're it's like it's hard to explain. Like when you're talking to the consultant, your opinion is rather irritating if it's different to theirs.
That's
Yeah.
true.
You know,
Yep.
isn't it?
It
Yeah,
is,
I mean,
yeah.
I've had
Yeah.
the same thing. I had quite an argument with a consultant here in relation to my daughter that became quite protracted and heated. And, you know, it doesn't really make any difference kind of what your own level of knowledge and your own background is. I'm a little bit upset about what you said about Great Ormond Street, because certainly where I trained in the UK was very much not like that.
Oh,
But
well, sorry, no,
no,
that is, yeah.
yeah, if
But
that's your
that's just
experience,
one, yeah, that's just one. We saw a professor actually of neurology. I won't mention any names, maybe, I don't know, but we saw a professor of neurology in Great Ormond Street, who's a lady that wouldn't have a great appetite for our interest in medical cannabis, we subsequently discovered.
right.
But it was quite hierarchical, and like I said, I
Yeah.
think whether they're English or whether they're Irish, they have a tendency to be irritated by anybody that's got
An
an
opinion.
opinion other than their own. You would be certainly welcome to have the same opinion as them,
Yeah.
but beyond that, it's rather annoying.
Yeah.
And like, it just turns into a fight then,
Yeah, it
because
does.
you're kind of, well, if I mean, if somebody listened to you and gave you a
Yeah.
chance and responded
Yeah.
and
Mm.
disagreed with you, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we experience this kind of whole-faced horror and disgust
Yeah.
written across the faces of the people that we were looking at. And that just is, I mean, that is annoying, and that's not
Horrible.
going to help
Yeah.
put
No,
us in any
it
better mood.
doesn't. You know, it
No,
should be a discussion. Healthcare should be a participation and a discussion.
And a case by case
Yeah.
basis.
Yeah, and everybody should be heard on their own grounds, on their own merit, and everybody's got something to say.
yeah,
You know,
because the thing about it is, it turns out, like, when it came to the medical cannabis, we were totally right about what we were fighting for, but you could be wrong as well.
Yeah.
I mean, you could be wrong about something, but if there's dialogue,
yeah,
I mean,
Yeah,
dialogue
exactly.
generates respect.
yes.
But if nobody's willing to listen to you, then communication can break down, and it just all gets very upsetting and horrible. So
Yeah.
we experience that too. Yeah.
It just seems to be one of those jobs where there's a lot of fragile egos involved in it and stuff, and
Oh.
it's not really a thing. It's kind of place where you leave your ego at home when it comes to the health of other individuals and stuff. You should probably leave your ego at home.
But there's good ones too. I mean, there are consultants where it's difficult to enter the room and get past the ego because it's busting out the door at you. But
Yeah.
but there are
Yeah.
other very reasonable people, and like you know with this topic, I think if you're given the chance to explain, if somebody is willing to listen,
Yeah.
they don't have to agree with everything that you're saying, but the evidence in our case was our daughter, and
Yeah.
the seizure freedom could not be made up. I mean,
Exactly. And at the end of the day, you're working in the interest of the patient. You want that patient
Yeah.
to be as healthy and well as they possibly can be.
yeah, that's why I can't understand why there's not, why there hasn't been phenomenal interest in terms of consultants in helping their patients, because
Mm.
many of their patients are being unsuccessfully treated with pharmaceutical medications. And you'd imagine, like, that they would be interested in trying the cannabis for at least some of their patients to see if it was effective. I mean, it certainly wouldn't do any harm anyway,
Yeah.
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 I just want to clarify as well, because I remember you said a bit earlier on, but like, just for the people watching, like, all four of us are sort of like, none of us are like saying like that all pharmaceuticals are wrong or anything like that. We're all just simply saying that, like, it just, in Vera's case, or for Ava, like, the pharmaceuticals did not work. It's not even about what didn't work. She just found something that did work. That's the important thing at the end of the day. And it's not up for people to sort of, I think people take this whole thing politically and stuff, and at the end of the day, like, this is a conversation about a little girl's health. It's not about like a political like agenda or opinion or anything like that. And I think people really need to start taking it case by case. Pharmaceuticals work for some people, more natural ways work for other people, and that is all people need to accept, because at the end of the day, it's not about like anyone watching's opinion. It's about the health of, like, you know, your daughter Ava or anyone else's daughter or son or anything.
It's
like
the best outcome for the most minimal negative effect.
Absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And I mean, like, when it I don't know, you mentioned something about the politics there. It's not about politics. I mean, even when we were trying to gather attention for Ava, I talked to everybody. I wasn't chasing one particular party or anything like that. I based I tried everybody that I could think of, everybody that was recommended to me, everyone, everywhere, you know, whether they were in the Dáil or in the Shannon or wherever they were. And I based my decision on the person and their response to us about the issue, rather than about whatever party or whatever part of the country they came from. You know, if they were open to hear, you know,
did the
please
same
God,
thing
maybe
that
they might help.
you did the same thing that consultants and doctors should do for their patients. You looked at the individual and not the sort of attachments and associations. You just looked at them as a human and you took it on by that. I think that's really important. I just want to sorry.
Like, just on that though, the thing is that it is I suppose my personal experience with consultants has been mixed, to say the least.
Exactly.
But there is the point to make that THC is a controlled substance still, that we are essentially in an era of prohibition regarding cannabis. And that until the THC is, I believe, until the CBD and THC are federally recognized in the United States, there won't be enough companies able to provide the double-blind studies and the trials and the white papers for consultants. But once that happens, the consultants, they do need some information. They need something to be able to work with. But at the same time, they have a duty of care to their patients, and they shouldn't ignore people who have no other option, you know. But like, neither am I saying that cannabis should be the final alternative or the last option. I wish Ava had been introduced to cannabis earlier in her life, because I know that, you know, there would have been less seizures then, and there would have been less damage for us to repair.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like, and especially, so like, if America, you know, federalizes it, like, it means, like, you know, if you know, there's one old man has left the White House, another old man has entered the White House. I don't care about either of them, to be honest. But if there's change made in there where, like, when America federalizes it, what you'll have is, like, lots of investors, like people not even to do with medicine, but they'll put lots of money into the research and stuff involved with it, which will become a global thing, which is good change. And it's definitely all going to happen. Just needs to happen sooner.
Is it legal in individual states now? Is it? No.
It's state by state thing.
It's a state by state issue.
I think there's 9 states, is there now?
California.
Alaska is one as well.
Each state has their own law. But then the federal, what's the individual law, the individual state law called? I can't think of it.
But there is a lot of money going. There's a lot of money going into it, since they did start legalizing in individual states. So
massive. There's is it something like $2 billion dollars in tax revenue came into Colorado via cannabis last year, I think.
Colorado.
Bit of a gold rush, like
total gold rush. And like, you know, the individual states have legalized. I think there's one particular state, I think it's Idaho, that are actively trying to pass some kind of law in their state that cannabis will never be legalized in their state. So that's extraordinary.
That's
mad. If the federal law is over the whole country, I suppose if
Yeah.
it's federalized, it'll, well,
I
look, I just think the knock-on effect would be remarkable, because
I
the big boys are over in America, and
yeah.
they've got the big companies and the they've got the ability to invest and to provide the studies to the consultants, who are essentially going to be the distributors of their product. So
Yeah.
it's
I
in
think
their interest to provide. Yeah.
the other interesting thing is that there's two areas of medicine that are kind of growing and gaining a lot of ground, and they've been in existence for decades, is functional medicine and integrative medicine. They functional medicine is more or less a specialty in the States now. So those two spheres of medicine are growing and growing because they're based a lot more on kind of prevention and, natural things, and looking at how we optimize ourselves first. So they've got more of an interest in looking at plant-based products and plant-based treatments for things. So I think that, in kind of combination with any federal changes, will also improve the situation.
Absolutely. And I suppose anything that is plant-based, like the Bedrocan medication that Ava's on is plant-based medication. It's it's more suitable for the body.
Yep.
The body accepts it more effectively, and the results are actually far and away above what pharmaceutical medications provide. But like it's just hard to know. It's always with this cannabis issue, it's 2 step forward and 1 step back,
Yeah.
but I do think it will come. I don't think Joe Biden is in any great degree an anti-cannabis president. And I
Yeah.
think that Kamala Harris is has been quite prominent in supporting it as well,
Well, hopefully they do something about it. Just before we'll finish up in a few minutes, but I'm really curious in an aspect that maybe you weren't expecting, or definitely a part you weren't aiming for anyway, and that's the stardom and the fame. Did you have people coming up to you and stuff, like in the streets, and like, because you were on so many different news outlets, like I was seeing you took over Irish Facebook, like it was Vera Twomey everywhere, like it was in 2016 to 17 and everywhere, and still like now and again stuff will pop up, but like it was everywhere, like all my friends were talking about it, like at parties and stuff, and genuinely like people were talking about your story at parties. I thought it was really interesting. But like, would people come up to you in the streets and stuff?
Like I mean, maybe I'm very kind of naive or something. I don't know, but I still it's still kind of I find it difficult to grasp the reach that it had. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'll give you, like, for example, a dear friend of mine up in Sligo, she sent me a link to, she recorded it. They were doing some kind of, it was a lecture in the college, and they were doing a lecture about the impact of social media on, particular issues. And they brought up our case.
Wow.
And it was something like the professor that was giving the lecture, or the teacher that was giving the lecture, was saying that some link, or some it was about the walk anyway, and it was viewed something like 600,000 times or something like that.
Yeah.
And that at that particular time it was getting more views than things that were happening over in New York, or
Yeah.
countries. But you see, the thing is, I I was not interested. I am neither
Yeah.
tall enough nor good looking enough to be a celebrity. I am none of these things, and like, that is not what I was interested in. I thought in 2016, that I was going to go up to Dublin. I thought the fight that I was going to have was to meet Simon Harris, go up to Simon Harris and say, Simon, please help us. We've got to start. I must turn on the light here. No, sorry.
Yeah.
You've got to help us. We must
Oh. Oh.
Back in a sec.
Can you still hear Hugh? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
A brief commercial break there. I hope you're doing well. And
now, what are we going to advertise in the commercial break? Cannabis?
Cheerios. Okay. Yeah. Her account is still in it.
Yeah, it's just waiting. It's just
the internet. I think something's happening.
Yeah, she's back. Hey.
Good.
Hi, yeah.
Oh, hi. 1 second. Sorry about Jesus.
You're right. You're right.
But like, I was. Where'd I find you now?
You were going to say to Simon Harris or whatever when you get up there. Simon?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Have I got you now? I can.
Yeah,
I see you all.
Perfect.
Sorry about that.
You're all good. No panic.
I shouldn't have moved because the internet. But this, not at all. I mean, I find it extraordinary, and I'm delighted to think that while fellas were out having a couple of drinks some night, they were talking about our situation and supporting it from the word go. I suppose you're in a lonely place. You're in a lonely place fighting this. And like as with anything for these kids, but I did not know. And people often say to me, you have no concept of what you've done, and maybe it's true, but like I do know that there has been funny things that happened. Like I remember one time meeting a lady. I was going into it's like the pound shop, or the store where you can find a needle or a haystack type of store, and I went in and picky up something anyway, and I was at the checkout, and this lady walked up behind me, and she said, "Is it you?" And I kind of looked around, and I was kind of like, well, I don't know who it could be me. I said, well, yeah, it's me anyway. Yeah. Are you the Twomey one? And I said, I am the Twomey one. Yeah, I am. How is she? I said, she's Ava's good. Thanks. She's good. Well, do you know what? She said, they must put an awful lot of makeup on you when you go on the television. You're fierce ordinary looking.
Jesus Christ. What sort of thing is that to say to someone? What the fuck? What?
Oh my God.
That is mental.
Jesus.
And she was, it was not,
I know.
It was just something that she thought, and she just said, they must put it up. You're fierce ordinary looking. I have no idea what she expected.
How did you respond to that, Vera?
Well, it's very funny because I've spoken to some of my friends about this. I agreed with her, which is very strange. I said, well, yeah. I said, I am ordinary looking. I said, I'm not extraordinary looking anyway, definitely. And she agreed with me as well. And then we went to walk everything.
Oh my God. What the hell? That's such a bad...
but people do come up and say hello and stuff. And like, thing is that they're only coming up because they care about Ava.
Yeah.
And like they're only coming up because like, Kieran, I don't think we'd have talked before, but you see, like, you'd be another person now, like you were saying that you were following Ava from the very word go.
Yeah.
And there's so many people out there that I haven't met, but that they absolutely, that they pray for Ava, that they kind of took Ava into their hearts and almost kind of like into their own family as one of their own. And subsequently, I ended up in that bunch as well, I suppose.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal, that's a huge compliment. And I know that we would not have achieved anything for Ava. We wouldn't have achieved anything for Ava without all of the support that we got, and without, you'd think like when fellas are out at parties that they'd be talking about girls are chasing women, but like, the nice people saying, did you hear this? 'Tis desperate, like
what was it like when you landed in Dublin? What happened when you landed there? You got there, walked there.
like
the
yeah, well, the thing about arriving above in Dublin was I was in so much pain, it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I had got tonsillitis by the time we reached Thurles. I had tonsillitis and I was on antibiotics for that.
Thurles
And
does that to
then
you.
my knee
Thurles.
was huh?
I said Thurles does
Thurles
that to
does-
you.
Thurles, yeah.
That's Thurles.
Sorry. Oh, it does. It
Guaranteed
does.
to put you on
It does not.
antibiotics.
But
That's funny.
and
You should have called in to
we
me.
you know what? You should have called
You
out
should have
to
called
me.
in to me. I'd have given you a cup of tea.
Popped into the party we were probably having.
That's something. Do you know, Hugh, that is something that happened along the walk up the
Good.
way. People came. People came with soup. They came with
Yeah.
sandwiches. They came with fruit. They came with gifts. They came with, I got somebody in Mitchelstown arrived on with a new pair of walking shoes for me. It was
Wow.
it was
That's cool.
people wanted to do something, whether it was bringing on a pair of gloves or whether it was, walking a mile of the road with us. They wanted to do something.
Yeah.
And all of that resulted in, in the end, getting what we needed for Ava. But like you asked the question about what was Dublin like, I was in the wheelchair. I couldn't see anything. I couldn't see who was behind me and I couldn't walk. I was really upset that I wasn't able to walk in, but the thing was there was I could feel the volume of people behind me. And I had said to the lads, I should walk the end of it. I should walk, but the people were moving. The people were coming behind us. That if I had got up, I would nearly have been the
Trampled.
weight of the crowd would nearly have passed me out.
Yeah.
And the noise was incredible, and the cameras. There was so many cameras, and there was reporters from every paper, and there was kind of these celebrity people even showed up, and I just think that I knew that this many of us are here. They can't ignore me now.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Because
Wow.
I felt like, you see, I didn't know what was going to happen when I left Tabullock. I really did not. And I left here that morning, and I said, well, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go, and if I have to go the whole way up on my own, I'll put it out on Facebook, and I'll even if I'm on my own, I'll do it myself. But I had walked, if I think now, I had walked beyond Dunamore, which would be about 5. I had walked 6 miles. I walked 6 miles on my own, and I was never on my own again after that
Wow.
6th mile
Wow.
up to
That's
Dublin. I was never on my own again.
Wow.
And the only reason that I went 6 miles was because when you come up to Pat Barry's above in Dunamore, there's a turning right and a turning left, both of which will take you to Mallow. And I went to turning right, and there was people actually out on the road looking for me
Wow.
that had gone left down that road looking.
So they were
and
even there from the start, like they just.
there from the start.
That's so cool.
And some people parked, like there was one lad from Ryland. He parked up his Jeep below at the bottom of New Tipperary Hill, and he left the Jeep there and he walked along with me, and he walked most of the ways into Mallow with me, and he had to get a buddy to come and collect him to go back for his Jeep,
That's so
Wow.
mad.
But
That's so mad.
it's things like that people were interested, and they, I suppose you see, we're ordinary. That's the thing. We're not. We're just ordinary people.
Yeah.
And I'd say a lot of people looking would be saying, well, if it was my daughter,
Mm.
or if it was my brother or sister
Yeah.
or something like that, well,
Yeah.
You'd like if somebody would support you, because the thing with this is you never think this is going to happen to you,
No.
Yeah.
but it does,
Mm.
you know. And like it's been, yeah, it's been shocking hard, but you see, people like Eva are a gift,
Yeah.
and you learn more about yourself and about the world actually and other people via them
Yep.
than you probably ever would have known if you hadn't met or been introduced to them, or they
Yeah.
hadn't been brought into your life. You know, I
Yeah.
see you smiling, Haley. Do you agree with me?
I could not agree more. And my
Yeah.
daughter's adopted, and yeah, I mean, I couldn't. She was my daughter, no matter what, you know. And yeah, completely. My whole outlook and my perspective on things has been, yeah, completely transformed because of her.
Completely changed.
That's
Yeah,
really cool.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Wow.
Like you'd be talking about you see, like the parties and the nights out and the holidays, and you know, all of these things that, you know, were normal and things that you did, they all just pale into insignificance
yeah,
Yeah.
when somebody like this is in your life and they need you, you know. Like we were good enough for going on holidays and things like that, but that's all gone. Like that doesn't, you know, it's, and it's no big deal, because
no. And it is
you
you. I think you. I don't know. In some ways, I would sometimes look at my daughter, and you kind of think like, yeah, there's a lot of sacrifices and stuff with all the difficulties and challenges, but there's a little bit of me that sort of feels honoured that she picked me. Where you
I
just
feel the
think, what
very
did
same.
I do to deserve that? What did
Yeah,
I do?
yeah.
Why me? Why did she pick me?
Like I feel like you're the custodian of a gift,
Yeah,
and that you've got you've it's you have this gift. You don't know how long you're going to have this gift for, hopefully for a very long time, but you don't know. But it's a privilege to have them.
and
I talked with someone another night, and they said, you know, about being unlucky, but I don't see it like that.
no,
I understand that some people might look at the likes of us, like yourself, Haley, or myself, and say, oh, the poor misfortunes, oh, God help us, they've a lot to deal with, oh, it's tough, you know, blah, blah, blah. But you see, it can be tough, but on the other side of things, there's a beauty to people like Ava that's just a gift to have in your life, you know? Yeah.
yeah, I think so too. And yeah, the different perspective, and you know, I you would do it's a very difficult thing to explain, because it's like what there's nothing that I wouldn't do for her. It doesn't feel like a chore like that. Yeah, you joke about it. Oh, I have to do this, I have to do that, but you'd never
Well, like when it came to
not
the walk, for
exactly.
example, like Haley, it it was completely logical to me
Yes.
what needed to be done.
That's
Completely
Yeah,
logical.
yeah,
yeah.
Now,
yeah,
when 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 I got up that we got up that morning, and Ava took a massive seizure that morning, and I had this thing in my head about walking to Dublin, because they had banged the phone down on us. You know, the emails weren't being returned. We were in a disaster zone with the department. It was going nowhere. Like they were not even answering the phone to argue with me anymore. You know, so it was very, very bad. And my dad had always kind of said, well, if the mount, what is it? If
It's
if the mountain won't come to Mohammed, then Mohammed must go to the mountain, right?
that's
That
so
was one
funny.
of his sayings.
yeah,
And I had this in my head, and I said, well, I'm going to have to go to Dublin. And I said, the best way to go is to walk. Oh, Hugh, you're gone. We can't see you anymore.
It's you
Um,
guys.
but that morning, there was no other option that I could see. So it was illogical to walk to Dublin, in terms of I didn't know how long it was going to take. I
Yeah.
didn't know if I was capable of it. I didn't know if I was going to, where on earth I was going to stay or anything. but I got up and I did it because
Yeah.
that's what had to be done for the child. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's, you learn so much about yourself because of them.
Oh God, and people and just and the wonderful people that came,
Yeah.
and the kindness, and like
Yeah.
as I said, the gifts. I still have a bag outside in my kitchen, which contains plasters and sort of aches, bams and all sorts of things
Mm.
that people gifted to me to help me along the way, because everybody wanted to do something, and it was
Yeah.
extraordinary because, like, we felt so alone, and we had been treated like dirt for so long, and then you realize there are people that care. They're not the people that have the power
Mm.
Yeah.
directly up
Yeah.
there at the moment, but there's so many people that care that we can do this. And it was like the the support gave you is that the right way of saying it? Like, the
Momentum. Yeah.
support gave you the momentum to
Yeah.
keep turning, to keep going,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
and so it was huge. It was.
And you didn't have to get your camogie stick out to them once, Vera.
Yeah.
I didn't, and they're better off for that not. Yeah, because
Good
my
woman.
my aim has not my aim is still just as good as it was.
Fair play.
That's really good. That's amazing. I think we're going to finish up now. That was one of the greatest conversations we've ever had in the podcast so far.
Oh God, thank
It was
you.
really good.
I hope I
Yeah, it's
didn't go on
lovely.
too much today.
No,
it's
it
been
was
great,
it was
Vera, thank
perfect. It was
you.
like a really good conversation. I do want to shout out one of my friends. He doesn't actually like watch the podcast much, I don't think anyway. He was the guy who actually told me about you at a party in McGov, and I'm gonna shout out his name because like that's like the equivalent to who do I really look up to? I don't know, just say like Mike Tyson. That's like if he was on a podcast with Mike Tyson and he shouted out my name on his podcast, I'd be like, thanks for that. So I'm gonna shout out McGov's name because I think you're a bit of a change. You're of course you're a change maker to everyone, but I think he actually went out to meet you in the horse and jockey. I remember I was supposed to go, but something happened. But like, yeah, so I'm gonna
Right.
shout out his name because I don't think he watches him normally. But yeah, he was the guy.
Oh well,
He told a lot of us about you. So
thank you so much, because another thing that kind of happened, excuse me, another thing that kind of happened with the walk was that I spoke to so many people,
mm.
and I was actually sick. Like, I was trying to look as good as I could
yeah,
going up,
yeah,
but I was sick, and I
yeah,
kind of, it all sort of, I think that the pressure
yeah.
physically and mentally was so much that I kind of find it hard to
Of
pick out
course.
individual
Ah, of
conversations. It
course.
kind
Yeah,
of all became a blur. So
of course.
but I do remember being at the Horse and Jockey, and
Yeah.
I really appreciate that, and I'm so delighted that he came and had the word with us.
Yeah.
Really, it means an awful lot.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. Yeah, your stories are remarkable, and really thanks for sharing like everything you did, and thanks for like being someone to make change in Ireland, like not just because you're not just making change about a specific thing, but you're just shaking people awake into like the possibility of change, and it's so healthy, and I do believe we'll get there, and I believe it'll have its growing pains, but
Well,
but people like you are doing it, and like. So on behalf of Ireland and all the change to come, like I want to say thanks, and
Yeah.
inevitably, yeah, the healthier every individual, every town, every country, and then eventually the whole world is healthy from people like you. So thanks a million, and
Yeah,
absolutely.
thanks,
Like,
Vera.
it's going to happen. It's going to come. It can't be ignored. It
Yeah.
can't be ignored forever. And you know, it's 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 just a matter of time. It's just that it would be great if it could have come quicker, because
yeah,
the quicker access comes,
Yeah.
And the sooner intervention can be made with this medicine, the less suffering there's going to be for the people that are using it.
Definitely,
So,
yeah.
you know, the sooner the better, as far as I'm concerned,
Definitely.
anyway.
So
I
you know?
couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, so we'll finish up anyway. So, like, again, thanks a million for coming on. And yeah.
Yeah, thanks very much. That's great.
Hugh's back.
Very interesting.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
So to everyone for watching, thanks for watching. And again, this isn't a thing
And
about.
I don't think I ever got asked by anybody what I was like as a child. So that's
Yeah.
that's a good one. Anyway, actually, it's kind of a bit of an insight into how maybe we got it done.
That's good,
Exactly.
That's our Hugh. He's good with those questions.
Yeah.
Thanks a million to everyone for watching. And if you want to check us out on Spotify, you can. And follow Vera's story on Facebook and stuff. Just keep in touch and do whatever you can to support and share this. And
we're on Facebook and we're on Twitter at Vera's One. I'm on LinkedIn as well. You can find me on LinkedIn. And if you're interested in, you know, the kind of whole story from the beginning, we've written a book called For Eva, and it's available at mercierpress.ie, and I think it's still on Amazon at the moment. So, you know,
that's really
the whole story is there, and it has a happy ending. So
yeah, it does. And I believe, I really have faith that like your story will continue, like the very end, because your story still like it'll really have a happy ending, like, and because you fought for it and you definitely deserve it by now.
I'll get back to her now. So
yeah,
and I'll
that's really cool.
Yeah, because you know, it's good, and the medical cannabis has brought nothing but happiness and peace into, you know, into her life. And the most important thing is that anybody that needs access to it in the future won't have to struggle for it the way that we had to struggle, and that hopefully the fight that we put up to get it therefore will mean something into the future that will help other children or other patients, you know. So
100%.
It will.
You're a trailblazer. A trailblazer. Thanks a million. And like and subscribe and share if you want to support it, and support Vera's story, and check out her book as well. And it grows in the ground, like it's just a plant. Right. Bye.